Good day, C3 parents. Coach Karien Pitout, and welcome to this conversation. I am super excited to introduce to you Shannon from Little Zebra Dragons. If you want to check out her channel, it's down below. She's living a completely interesting life. She's homeschooling her kids, she's living in an RV, and her children are neurodiverse. And today we are going to have an awesome conversation about neurodiversity, gentle discipline, and taking things on the road less traveled.
Thank you, Karien. I am so glad to be here. Like Karien said, my life is very different than it used to be. Following a bunch of medical things and diagnoses with my sons, I decided the future is fragile, so I wanted to spend more time with my children and be able to do more gentle discipline with them. And that didn't work with regular school, so I wanted to homeschool. And the only way as a single parent that I could afford to homeschool was to move into an RV where we would have less expenses. So I have two children. I'm divorced from their father, and their father has no part in their life. And they have so many different neurodiverse things that we'll get into that in the whole conversation. But the main things are Tourettes, and they also have connective tissue disorder, and these are the two overarching things with a lot of other little things that go on. So my channel is Little Zebra Dragons, and I would love to have you come and join our adventures as we travel around the United States in our RV with our two cats. We have a lot of old-fashioned kinds of adventures out in the woods. When it's not COVID, we go to lots of museums and educational things, just lots of fun, and whatever my boys think up next. You never know what they will come up with next.
Okay, fantastic. You keep the cats from running away, so that was that soon. Right.
Our cats never go outside.
So they stay in the RV.
Yes, we have two cats right now. And they have gotten out a couple of times, but because we've never let them out since we rescued them. They were strays when we got them, but they were very tiny. So they've never known outside. It's
Scary
foreign to them. Yes. We've had some other cats, two of which that have gotten out, and then they got lost and just did not come back. We're pretty sure somebody took them from the campgrounds because they were the friendliest cats ever. So these cats, I told the boys, no, we're not taking them out on a leash. We're not taking them outside. Outside is off limits, and it's been good. They'll stare at the window, but they stay inside.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. I could never have imagined cats touring. Dogs, yes, but cats, because they are usually so territorial, like touring, so the van is their territory, and that's where it stops. All right.
Yeah, well, when we're on the road, they hide under the sofa. They don't like the van. They don't like the RV moving. But other times, they have their own. We have I have created a space for them. I took a headboard from a bed and put it across the top and then put blankets on it so they can run up there and be out of the way and have their own space.
Okay, that's really awesome.
So they love that.
So for how long have you guys been on the road?
About 2.5 years now.
Okay.
So, and it hasn't been perfect with being on the road the whole time because about 4 months in, I shattered this elbow and had to have surgery. And so we ended up staying at my sister's house for a couple months there. And then this last year with COVID, I had just purchased this RV and then was waiting on repairs, and then COVID hit. So we stayed at my sister's house for like 5 months. But in general, but our house has been the RV. We haven't had an apartment or house that we pay rent on. I just pay my sister for utilities when we stay near at her place. Okay. So 2.5 years.
All right. And how's the kids, how are they adjusting to being in basically living a transient life where you move from one spot to the other as the feeling or the urge hits you guys?
Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. They love parts of it and they hate parts of it. The parts they hate is that they don't get to see their friends on a regular basis. And with COVID, we really wouldn't get to see them much anyhow for this last year. They spend a lot of time on their electronics, connecting with their friends, playing Minecraft and Roblox, and they've got a Discord channel that they go and they talk to them and everything. But when they get upset with me, they're like, "It's your fault that we don't get to see our friends, Mom." But when we're traveling on the road and doing things day after day and going and walking in the woods or swimming in the Great Lakes, then they're fine with it. It usually erupts into the, we don't get to see our friends when we're stuck someplace for a while. So overall, they've adjusted well.
So they want the movement.
Yeah, they enjoy the movement and the variety. And they also, I have noticed in them that they are much more relaxed. They are much more calm. When they went to school, regular school, by the time they got home from school, they were finished. They were stressed out. Their sensory input was maxed out. They could not deal with anything more. They came home, they just fought with each other. They fought with me. They didn't have energy to do anything. They didn't have the want to do anything. And being on the road has helped them. They still have their sibling rivalry, but there are definitely times where they get along and they talk it out and they work it out a lot better than they used to. And yeah, so overall, their mental health is much, much better than it was before.
I found that especially with our neurodivergent kids, when it comes to sensory stuff, you know, the best explanation I've seen is someone talking about like it's a Coke bottle that was shaken the whole day. And then when they finally get home, you open the top and everything just comes out. And it's they're so overloaded that they can't even handle conflict in a proper way, and it actually derails their development of how to handle conflict and how to learn how to do it in a healthy way. It's one of the things that we are trying to wrap our heads around with our move to the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, it's illegal to homeschool unless you have very specific you need to put in requests and all of that, and you have to get a very specific type of permission to do it. But then again, in the Netherlands, the school system, according to what I've read up and the parents that I've spoken to, is much more geared towards assisting and supporting neurodivergent kids. So we're excited and a bit, with a little bit of trepidation regarding the shift. It will be interesting to see our homeschool kids to be in a system for the first time in their lives. Well, at least the oldest the second time in his life. But it will be interesting to see how it moves forward and how that Coke bottle will look at the end of each school day. We'll have to, but I'm focusing a lot now. We've got about 3 or 4 months left for our move. So I'm quite focusing now on building up that resilience, teaching them those little social strategies, and focusing on the oldest new strategies that he didn't have to learn right now, because we thought we were going to homeschool until he matriculated. So we thought we will focus on those skill sets in high school years where his brain is further developed and much more agile to build those things. And now our timetable has shifted, so now we are playing resilience games and things like that, and we'll see how it plays out and pans out. But yeah, I can imagine, especially a child that is divergent, where if schools don't cater for their needs and their space that they need to occupy, how it can literally be kicking the bottle down the road the whole time, and at the end of the day always just have these horrible explosions with the kids.
In America and United States, schools are equipped to work somewhat with the neurodivergent kids, and they have a lot of, you can get a 504 or an IEP and adjust and stuff. But when it comes to things that they don't understand and they don't know, and the fairly rare conditions that my sons have, they don't do well with it. And we were in the last couple years that they were in public school, we were in a very good school system. And I I worked very hard to get into that school system and find a house that, find an apartment that I could afford so they could go specifically to that school system. So I was very disappointed with how much they did not work well with my kids and what they needed, because they refused to follow what the medical community says is best practice, and instead they would use it as a discipline issue, and refuse to keep other kids from bullying him about his tics that he had. So, and he had a fantastic teacher, but the administration was not supportive. They were the opposite of supportive, yes. And so it was just very frustrating. And then my other son, he was diagnosed in about 5th grade. He was diagnosed with connective tissue disorder and with POTS.
Okay.
And these are where we get our little zebra dragons. Zebra is, in the medical community, a rare medical diagnosis. So when doctors are taught to diagnose something, they're taught, if you hear hoofbeats, look for a horse.
Yes.
But in order to diagnose my sons and myself, they had to say, well, the horse isn't it. They had to look for a zebra. So we're medical zebras.
Okay.
So I always have to, every time I say connective tissue disorder, Ehlers-Danlos, and POTS, I have to explain to people.
So please
Which is
explain.
okay.
Please explain to the audience.
And that
what
is one
that?
big, and that is one big reason that we started our YouTube channel. One was to have people follow us and our adventures, but the other is to raise awareness about these types of rare conditions, and that there's others out there. And if they're invisible, they're still there. So Ehlers-Danlos is one type of connective tissue disorder. Connective tissue is all of the stuff that binds your body together. The biggest parts we think of are your tendons and your ligaments. These hold your bones together, your joints together. When you have connective tissue, think of if you have a nice basket, somebody that's really good has made that basket. Well, if you have a connective tissue disorder, it was not an expert that made it. It's all been kind of messed up, and there's no way to fix it. There's just ways to work around it, to strengthen your muscles so that they can compensate for that connective tissue. And there's ways to avoid things like, say, basketball, where you move quick. That's not good. Those joints they're not as stable otherwise. But there's other parts of connective tissue. Our digestive system is all connective tissue on the inside. Our blood has connective tissue in it. Our skin is connective tissue. Like, every part of the body is connective tissue. So it can affect every system in the body. Fortunately, my sons only have the hypermobile kind. This kind is the least dangerous. There are many other kinds that are much, much worse. So we still have to be careful, but I'm always counting my blessings that, nope, it could have been worse. We're good. So that's Ehlers-Danlos, hypermobile. I also have connective tissue disorder, not otherwise specified. I was too old, and I'd already broken both elbows. So one of the tests for the connective tissue for the hypermobile is that your elbows overextend. So instead of your elbows being straight, they kind of go a little bit too far, and your knees and things like that. Well, they couldn't do the tests on my arms, and I'm already stiff in other places, so I'm connective tissue, not otherwise specified.
Okay.
The other big thing that my older son has is POTS, which stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So this is that postural is if you change your position, you go from laying down or sitting to standing. Then orthostatic, blood pressure drops. Tachycardia, heart rate goes up. So if he is laying down or sitting down, gets up, if he stands quickly, he can have a blackout. He's never fainted yet, but lots of pre-syncope. And this is something, it may be related to his Ehlers-Danlos, that his connective tissue and his blood vessels are not strong enough to send that blood back up from his legs, or part of the dysautonomia, which is POTS is under dysautonomia. His body systems, all those automatic ones, just don't work right. So his body doesn't send the signal to say he needs it. So he gets to have all the salt he can possibly take in, plus take salt pills. So he'll take microwave popcorn and pour on the salt. And I'm going, yeah, you want some more? And then he takes salt pills, and he actually takes a medication that is a steroid that helps to keep the salt in his system. So it increases the blood, how much blood he has in his system. So it raises his blood pressure a little bit. So when he's pouring salt on and people are going, what is he? I'm like, he needs it. That's medicine for him.
I can just imagine the looks you get when the heaps and heaps of salt, and there's people that's not allowed to eat salt that goes like, oh man, I'm jealous.
We recently had sushi, and after he was done, he had a thing of soy sauce left over. Glug 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 glug. And people were like, yeah, he does.
Well, it really brings a interesting facet. So obviously in school, then they're having to move around, having to change classes, those kind of things obviously then played a significant role in how he coped in a school environment.
He was exhausted just from moving from class to class. And then he has the sensory issues. So as he's moving and bumping and jostling, and it just completely exhausted him. And then he had, going along with the sensory, or it might be with the dysautonomia, he had bathroom issues that he had to go to the bathroom often. And the teachers weren't understanding with that. In fact, they wanted him to go every time to the nurse's office, which was halfway across the school. And I was saying, he can barely make it through the day. Why are you adding more times of him to walk all the way across the school? Because they didn't understand that this was part of these diagnoses. So there was always the thing in school of conform. And it was just like, they're not going to conform because they're not the same.
You know, they're not different. Capable. Yeah, they're not capable of. There's certain things that they can fit in with, but the majority of their behaviors and their needs is outliers to what the general expectation is of people. And I think if we bring that to parenting, so often, and even as a parenting coach myself, I often have to say to parents, you know what, I can do YouTube videos on tantrums and raising your kid in a specific way and things like that. But in the end of the day, if I don't have a one-on-one conversation with you and help you troubleshoot something that is family specific, the general advice that I give will be amazing for your household, will already improve things. But it's that individualized, shaped to what works for that specific family, that a lot of bigger institutions, the moment we institutionalize something, a lot of kids and a lot of people fall through the cracks because not every single person's the same. And we see it in the microcosmos of the family home if you have more than one child, because not every child's the same.
I was just thinking that as you were saying it.
You know, so as adults, we reason away. You know, when you get a life partner or you have a life partner, you're like, it's just because you were raised differently than what I am. That's why we differ. But when we have kids that is born to the same parents and they're so vastly different from each other, then you start realizing, oh my word, but there's a certain individualization that has to happen even in the broader scheme of how society functions and how we engage with our kids and how we raise our kids. That becomes
that
difficult.
Is so true.
And then it becomes difficult to find a balance within schools.
When you say the kids are so different, my kids are day and night in a lot of ways. Like my one kid is the Energizer Bunny. He is ADHD with an emphasis on the hypes. So the Energizer Bunny is that's a commercial from the United States, from batteries, the Energizer and the bunny.
We have it in South Africa as well. Yes.
Okay. And that is when he was like 6 or 7 years old, he said, Mom, I'm the Energizer Bunny. He recognized it in himself. And then his brother, the older one, he is ADHD, emphasis on space cadet. At least when he was at school, that was the main problem.
Our eldest is well, he's definitely on the spectrum regarding sensory input, and one of the things that we are going to we need to have an appointment with a neurologist for the final diagnosis on whether he's on the ASD spectrum or if it's ADHD. But he makes this aeroplane sounds from child, like infancy. He's absolutely obsessed with things that fly. And he would when he self-stims by going. So so we always talk to him and say, hey, you need to snap out of airplane mode, and we need you to focus here. Our attempts to draw him back. So the airplane mode is quite an expression used often in this household. That stimming, that taking space, that they're here but they're not here, and letting them play with that nothing box is one of the things I think for parents that are not neurodivergent, as my husband and myself. We suspect we have certain outliers in our personalities and how we handle sensory stuff, but not affected as much, or it probably have been raised to a point where we ignore it, and we've got coping strategies, but we don't really do it. But in our home, it was such a difficult adjustment, accepting that we really need to make double sure, because our eldest doesn't like eye contact, so it completely overwhelms him. So that whole practice of look me in the eyes when I talk to you, that was drilled into us as children. Now that we have our own kids, we can't do that because it completely overwhelms him. So now we need to find creative ways of connecting with him and saying to him, okay, I need you to focus. Can I be sure that you focus, so that we know that he's paying attention? And I think the biggest learning curve for us was realizing that when he's at his busiest is when he's focused the most, and he actually retains the information the best. And that shift in thinking of I've worked with so I've worked with neurodivergent kids, but it's different being the teacher, because you only have to deal with it for short bursts, and being the parent and realizing, but those kids that I taught, because I knew that if they're busy fidgeting, they're still paying attention, I was patient and I could do it. But we never taught we never reached the parents and sat down with the parents and explained. We explained it to them, but it doesn't really register with the parents, because we are so forced into a little box of thinking that if a child's not making eye contact, they're not listening. If they don't sit still like statues, they're not listening. And now having to live with it in the home, I understand the frustration, I understand the exhaustion, because they make you tired. Okay, being so, it's like I'm just exhausted watching them. But having experiencing it in the home for the first time, I can honestly commiserate with those parents. And there's a part of me that wishes that back then I knew what I knew now, so that I could support them in a better way, in a more constructive way, and help them find strategies that can work in their homes, that neither party pays a price for the differences that is within the makeup or the genetic makeup that is in that household.
Right. And it's so hard finding that balance, and that's something that I have a lot of trouble with. Part of it being that I have my own medical issues, so I get exhausted. And it's like, okay, I know my kids spend too much time on their electronics sometimes. But one, that's how they connect with their friends. And two, sometimes I'm just too exhausted to say, come on, you need to go do this, or you need to go do that. So that's something I'm constantly fighting with myself. And that I don't want to do it like, you have to do this. That I want to get it across to them that this is important. You need to do your schoolwork because it is important to do. So even though reading is difficult, you need to learn the reading. Your brain is ready for it, so you need to do your homework. And that's the difficulty for me, it really is. And I know that I'm not doing well on that part. But I think overall, I'm doing well raising them. They're good kids. They are learning a lot. There's just some little aspects that I need to work on.
But I think also you guys, okay, yes, you've only been on the road for about 2 years, which have been severely interrupted with COVID and with life happening to such a degree that I think that a lot of us as parents need to cut ourselves some slack and
Mhm.
acknowledge that, you know what, we are parenting in extraordinary circumstances.
Yes.
Um, and whether there is a medical reason for our exhaustion, or whether it is the pandemic, or whether it is just life being like for us with pandemic, and now we're being uprooted, and everything it feels like you're just grabbing at straws and you're grabbing at air. And we need to have some patience with
Yes.
us and ourselves, and grace for ourselves, that acceptance that, you know what, if I've given my all today, everything capacity that I could give today, that was good enough. And
Yes.
then it means my kid feels loved, they feel connected, they feel heard, they feel like they matter and that they're
Hmm.
wanted and that they belong. And if we have all of that, then yes, maybe the reading can pause for today and we can try it again tomorrow. Maybe then
Yeah.
the writing, our eldest struggles with taking he can write in his head, but moving it from his brain to his hands, there's a disconnect. That's the best way for
Oh,
me to
my
explain
both
it.
both of my sons have that, and they've been diagnosed with dysgraphia. So
Oh,
even though my oldest son is genius, I mean, he's like a 140 reading IQ and 130 overall IQ. But you ask him to write something down, he can't. He tries to form letters like he's a first or second grader. And he can't process the thoughts of making it. So when he was in school, and I've continued his IEP with me, is he gets the scribe. If there's
mm,
anything more than one paragraph, he gets a scribe. He says it out loud, I write it down. Because I don't want his brain, I don't want his imagination that's incredible and his abilities to be limited by his lowest denominator, which is
denominator,
writing.
yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
don't want the writing holding back everything else. Because
And
there's
that's what
so
we
much in there.
There is, and that is what we are. Like I said, I'm excited to see what is on offer in the Netherlands. But it's one of the things that I'm super excited about, that they do get scribes, they get one-on-one coaching. There's a lot of things, and where in a lot of spaces, and I know in our country specifically, if a child is neurodivergent and they actually do not go to a mainstream school, a lot of the times they end up in what is called technical schools, where they will get taught like to become a mechanic, or to, it's great because it's skills, it's work skills training.
Mhm.
But what about the kid that is academically with their brain a phenomenal person, but that does not get tapped into because there's this belief that when they're different, they can't achieve. And I think that was
Right.
one of our biggest fears. And when I started reading up and engaging with the people overseas, I was actually, my heart was like so relaxed, as one parent actually reached out to me and said, no, you know what, my kid is doing grade 3 level work, and the kid is only 6, but they're not writing down anything because the dysgraphia is one of the biggest challenges. They are working with OTs and whatever to try and, at least, because a child should at least be able to write something.
Right.
Also it is a skill that they need, but shouldn't be a skill that holds them back from progressing throughout their life. We've got enough technology available that some of these kids will hopefully never have to pick up a pen for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Um,
When my
but it's
kids
still a
reached about
skill.
Yeah, when my kids reached about third or fourth grade, their occupational therapist said, we're going to continue working with them on writing, but I want them to focus on learning to type, to learn to actually do the touch typing, because that is their future. That will help them more than writing. They still need to be able to write a few things,
Yes.
but typing is the thing. And the talk to text when they get older and can do that effectively.
That is what we are now busy working and incorporating, because I've went old school with our homeschooling. Like, you have to write. I will write for you as well when you're really at that point, but you need to be able to spell, you need to be able to do these things. And unfortunately, with technology, spell checker and all of that, yes, you might still make a grammatical mistake, especially when we get to similes, but they still need to have those skills, and we've slowly but surely worked with him on that. But I can honestly say the imagination is running wild, and it's amazing to hear the stories. We're actually planning on giving him his first ever video camera. It's like really a honky-tonk 19-something foot sacks kind of video recorder, so that he can start, recording his stories that he's telling, so that one day when he's able, he can transcribe it for himself, or we can pay someone to transcribe it for him. But we want that storytelling, because that's part of life, and giving him that space to do that. I'm super excited to do that for him. You spoke about Tourette's, so let's circle back to the Tourette's. What kind of challenges is it for now? Okay, so just for the how can I say, the broader public, our sense of humor and how people look at Tourette's. Usually Tourette's is shown in media as the person that swears a lot, or the person that, like the let's make them the butt of the joke kind of expressions of how you see Tourette's. And I don't want people to leave this conversation with that idea regarding Tourette's. So what is it like raising a kid with Tourette's? How does the tics look? Is it always just the funny swearing? Is it not? It's probably not in any way, but just expand on it, so that when people are done with this video, they know that this is what Tourette's looks like, and this is what it doesn't look like. And then, just have a realistic idea of how it works with parenting and all of those things.
One picture that I've seen of Tourette's that I think is very helpful for people is an iceberg. So you have an iceberg and you see this much above the surface. That's what you're seeing. There is all of this under the surface that you're not seeing that goes along with Tourette's. Kids or people who have Tourette's also very often also have OCD and anxiety, intrusive thoughts, so thoughts of bad things just pop into their head, and sensory issues, and lots of different things going on that you have no clue about underneath. Depression, feelings of I'm never good enough, and all of these things just come along with Tourette's, and that's what you don't see when you see these tics on the surface. And the tics, I have 2 kids with Tourette's. My younger one was diagnosed. A couple years later, my older one was diagnosed with Tourette's. And neither of them have ever done the stereotypical shouting, cussing, that type of thing. That's not usual Tourette's. That's coprolalia or something. There's a name for it, but most people with Tourette's don't have that. Some do, but not all. My sons, the very first tic that they had, and then it went on for years, for a year or 2 before I even realized, was clearing their throat. And that tic, after my sons were diagnosed, I said, I do that. My mom did that all the time. So recognizing that there's things in the family that, we've got tics that we did, not necessarily Tourette's, but their other tics are, my younger son has a tic that is closing his eyes, blinking hard. And it would look like that's a harmless tic. But when we were talking to one of his counselors, and we asked him, what's your worst tic? He said, closing his eyes like this. And when he explained, he said every time he closes his eyes, everything goes blurry. So if he's trying to read, which stresses him out, and when you're stressed, your tics get worse. So then he's blinking his eyes, then he has to wait for it to focus, then he tries to read again, he gets stressed, he blinks his eyes, it's blurry. So what's already difficult is even more difficult because the eyes get,
disrupted,
blurry. Yeah. And so that's why one reason with the homeschool that's like, okay, let's push him to do this, but not push too much, and so that I can balance it with the amount of stress, with the amount of tics, with the amount of stress. Their other tics are, they have some that have gotten severe enough that they're now taking some medication to help lessen these tics, because they had some that we started calling them like stretch, just like a stretch attack, that their whole body, they'd start to do a stretch and then their whole body would stretch and then they'd just go, and they would fall off the sofa, fall off the bed, whatever they were on, they could not stop their body from stretching out. So and they both had these at different times, and we saw a neurologist, and she checked to make sure that it was not a seizure, because it really kind of looked like a seizure. But my oldest one has had like 3 EEGs now, and the younger one has had an EEG. They said, no, these aren't seizures. They're just tic attacks. So they take a medication that just moderates that down a little bit. So now they just have the tic from that's they grab something and mom, grab it before I throw it. And their hand will just close around it, or they'll pick up something and throw it. And fortunately, they've been under little bit enough control to not do their phones or anything like that. But they just, and the only thing that's consistent with tics is their inconsistency. Okay. They are always changing. They're a fluid motion they may have this tic today, they may not have it tomorrow. It may come, it may go, and it may come back again. My younger son has had at times tics that were yelling and things. Like when he was still at school and he would get out of school at the end of the day, we would start doing yelling together. And he would just be like, ah! And I would scream too, ah! But before I started doing this with him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna scream with you, so you don't feel like you're being singled out and, by yourself. We'll just do it like it's a fun thing. And he's like, yeah. Because I didn't want him thinking I was making fun of him. Yeah. Or, imitating him or anything. But he was like, yeah, that's good, Mom. That's a good idea. So I would notice, like, if we're coming out of a store, like even going into a store, like going into Target or a grocery store, that's overwhelming for them. That's so much stuff going on. That's the lights, that's the noises. And for my older son, who has the connective tissue more and the dysautonomia, the POTS, all of that stuff causes his whole body to everything's in overload and too much going on. So for my older son, it's exhausting. So you'll see my 14-year-old son, well, 13, because he's been in like public buildings like 5 times this year because of COVID. So before COVID, you would see my 13-year-old son in the shopping cart because walking around the store was too exhausting. We're working on getting a wheelchair for him. The doctors are working on getting a wheelchair for him for when he's long excursions and stuff like that. Because a couple hours, that's his limit. If we want to go to an amusement park, we've had several times at the zoo or the amusement park where, hi, security, can you get us a cart and get us back to our car, please? Because he can't walk. Yeah. Because his legs just gave out. But let's see, where were we? We were talking about Tourette's tics. Now, there are some times when it's okay if you know the Tourette's person really well. Like with my sons, we'll laugh about their tics. We laugh about it together because without humor, we wouldn't be able to deal with everything. But we make it very clear in how we're doing it that I'm not laughing at them. We're laughing together. We're laughing that, oh, look what the tic did to me now. Or my youngest had a tic for a while that was jalapeno. And we would laugh afterwards and go, I love that tic. That is a great one. And it's just, we just have fun with it.
Embracing the difference without being the butt of the joke. That is I think that is
exactly.
And that's awesome. Yeah.
So, and it's so different, but so wonderful.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, since you guys now have moved out of the public system, they almost like moved out of the public pressure cooker that is living in a home and being in school and all of that. Has it improved your children's emotional well-being regarding the tics?
Oh, so much. That has definitely improved it. I mean, it has improved their emotional well-being. Their tics have went down from the lower stress. Still get them, but we can adjust for them. They don't have to wake up so early in the morning to get to school.
I'm
And
gonna miss that.
I know. And living in the RV, I'm able to adjust our expenses down a little bit, so I don't have to work like every single minute trying to afford to be able to pay the rent and the utilities and then not have anything left over. So I also have a little bit of money where it's like, he needs he needs sketchbooks to be able to continue his writing, because my older son is just an incredible artist. And so I want to be able to buy him sketchbooks and the mechanical pencils he wants. And here's some new types of colored pencils. Try these. Oh, you want to try? Sure, I'll get that for you. I can do that now, and I couldn't before. And when COVID's over, I can get him a few classes, to improve his skills and stuff. And I couldn't when it was so much pressure before. It was like, and I was exhausted because I was working a full-time job, working in a school. And by the time I got home, I was just like, hot dogs for supper? Sound good? Because I'm too tired. So we have a lot more now. Their mental health is better, but also their physical health is better since we're on the road, and they can, or actually we all can, enjoy life in little bursts. We don't have to say, okay, today we're taking the day to go to the zoo and we're going to be all day there, and it'll exhaust us, and then we won't be able to do anything else. We have a zoo pass. When we're at a zoo place, we'll go into the zoo a couple hours, then we come back out, and we've done for the day, but we've done what we want to do. Or we go someplace, let's go for a walk. We'll go for a walk for half an hour, and the RV is right there. We can come back, relax, and not be exhausted and have to do the half-hour drive back home, things like that. We can do little bursts of experience. And we can adjust each day according to, this summer we took a trip out to Niagara Falls, carefully social distancing. So we found beaches that were almost empty, or that was enough space that we swam in 3 of the Great Lakes. We got 2 more to do. We want to do those next summer.
Oh, fantastic.
But it was just like, okay, do you guys feel like going to the beach? Yeah, I do, Mom. Okay, let me look on Google. Beaches near me. Oh, let's try that one. And we'd go to the beach, and we'd swim for half an hour or an hour, what they felt like. And then we're right there, get back in. They could rest while I drove us to wherever we needed to be. And it was just, I love being able to do little bits, because that's the only way that my sons can do it.
The freedom that comes with that. Now, your future plans. Okay, so I've got roundabout an idea how America's map look, and now I sound like the Americans that don't know the rest of the rest of the world looks. But I've got roundabout got an idea.
I know where South Africa is.
I'm glad you know that bit. So basically, are you on the southern side, or the western side, or the eastern side of America at the moment?
I am in the middle.
I'm in
Nebraska.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Right by Kansas City, right in Nebraska.
Okay. All right. So are you guys planning on going over touring the rest of the whole of America while you're at it? Or is it currently just staying within your local area due to the medical needs? Because I understand that in America, there's quite a few tight ropes that you have to walk regarding medical support.
Medical stuff
and all of that. Which can make things a bit more complicated for you. Yeah.
Now, the last couple of years, we haven't gone much outside of our local area, a lot of it for medical, establishing my sons with all of their doctors and stuff, because we moved from Kansas City up to more the Iowa area, which isn't too far, but it's enough that we had to establish brand new doctors. So we had the first year of doctor's appointments almost every day, of just trying to get all their doctors, going to the chiropractor, going to physical therapy, occupational therapy, this one first, and then this one. My occupational therapy and physical therapy for my elbow. So we really stayed, even in the winter time, we stayed here in Nebraska with, a foot of snow in the RV. But we were toasty warm in the RV. We had the electric heaters, so we were fine. It just wasn't very much fun to go outside, except to go sledding and build snow forts. It wasn't too bad. It was just cold. But yes, we do plan, this last summer, we finally took off and went to Niagara Falls, and it's kind of like, yeah, we can do this. Even with COVID, we can do this if we're very careful. As long as they keep the keep the campgrounds open. Sometimes they're closing the campgrounds
Yeah.
because of COVID, saying, no, you can't. So that would really throw a wrench in plans. But yes, we do plan on traveling all over the rest of the United States. Maybe not the big cities, especially out east, because driving an RV in those areas, because all I have when we travel, that's all I have is the RV. It's a 32-foot RV with a rack on the back for the bikes. So it's about a 35-foot thing that I'm driving. And before I started with RVs, before I started driving the RV, I had never driven something this big, maybe a van. So the first one was a 24-foot RV, and the first time I drove around the block, yay, I turned the corner! Yay, I made it around the block! All right!
Okay, so let's load the kids up and let's go.
We're good, let's go. I can drive around the block. Let's move into the RV.
Don't ask me to ever back up, but I can move forward. As long as we go forward and turn left and right.
I have to back up sometimes, but it's I got a backup camera. I got to get it installed. That should help a little bit.
Awesome.
We won't say I haven't hit a few things, but I go really slow, so it doesn't cause too much damage. It was a pole. It was a pole, and it damaged the rack for the bikes, but it still works.
Well, at least you had that buffer. You had that buffer.
Yes, I was very glad on that. So yes, we do plan on traveling all over the United States. The main problem right now is I teach online in the mornings. I teach English to kids in China. That's how I support us. And I have to have really good internet to do that. Now, most of Western United States and Northern United States, there's not a whole lot of signal there. I get the signal from my cell phone. So I have to look and go, okay, there's one online camping group. It's like Campendium is where I look, and other people that have stayed at these campgrounds go, okay, this cell service has this many bars and this one this many bars. So I can look and see, okay, this campground should have enough internet for me to teach. So I can do that. But when I get out west, it's far between for where you'd have enough internet. So there's two things going on that I can do to go travel to the west and go to the national parks and all that stuff. One is take some time off for my teaching different times, but I'm careful to do with that because if I take too much time off, I might lose my regulars, and then it's hard to build them back up again. But two, there's Elon Musk has a thing going with a Starlink, I think it's called, the new internet. I am so excited for that. I can't wait, because then I can get internet anywhere and we can go everywhere and I don't have to worry about looking, do I have internet? Do I have internet? We can just go. I'll be so excited. Hasn't come out yet, but soon.
I must say there's a part of me that's jealous. There's a traveler spirit in me. When as growing up, our December holidays was occupied with we call it combis in South Africa. You know that almost those 60s minivans. Okay, those like those Volkswagen.
Oh, like the Volkswagen that were like
the flower power vans. Okay, so
yes,
in South Africa for a very long period of time, that was quite a popular vehicle if you had more than 2 kids. All right, so we were. I'm a child of. We come from a family where my parents discovered where babies come from after baby number 4. And it's basically we grew up like we would take the combi and we would take the caravan, hook it up, and then for about a week we would have holiday in the Western Cape. Now it's about 12,000 kilometers. Don't ask me what it is in miles, and I'm not trying to. It's about 2 miles per kilometer, so it's quite a distance. All right, so it's about 12 hours. It's quite a distance. So we'll take between 3 days to a week to travel down to the Western Cape from the Gauteng area, which is the upper side of South Africa, to the bottom Cape of Storms area. And we would stop at the little tiny towns and go look at it. And as a child, I didn't really appreciate it as much as I do now as an adult, because I realized that there was a certain kind of investment made in me as a child, which, like typical child, like, why are they wasting my time? I just want to get to the beach and go party, kind of attitude. But if that traveler sense, that ability to travel from small town to small town and actually get into the nitty gritty of of not just the country's history, but just every town that lives, there's a certain change in how they live and how they do things. There's a little small cultural differences, even though we're all from the same country. There's small little differences, even ways that they speak, that you're like, hey, that's a weird way of saying something or engaging with something. And so yeah, I've been into to places like they're called Pits onder water, which is a standard joke in South Africa. Pits onder water is like saying well without water. All right, it's a town name that is in our more desert, like almost your Nevada, where you guys have Nevada, like the desert area,
right?
But
The desert.
yeah, so Pitout onder water is like really close to that area, if I'm correct. And South Africans, if I'm wrong, please take a screenshot of the South African map and show me exactly where it is. But I know it's en route from Joburg to Western Cape. So, and I can honestly say I've been there. I've eaten some of the local delicacies and things like that, and very few people can say that about their own country, that they'll rather travel across the borders, but they haven't been to the little jewels that is part of their country. And I think that makes me excited for what you do with your kids. You get to go and look up all the little jewels and finding the diamonds in the rough within your country. And it's
yes, and we do a lot of that. We do like we came into Iowa at one point, and I was in, we were walking down the street, and I just saw somebody walking their dog, and of course my son had to say, "Can I pet your dog?" And I was like, "Anything in your town we should know about and check out?" And he said, "Well, Iowa's tallest slide is in the playground right over there." "Oh, let's go check it out." So we went and found Iowa's tallest slipper slide. And so the kids got to play on it, and now they got to do the, but we find, I love going to the little towns and stuff like that. Now, with me needing internet, sometimes that presents a problem that they don't have the internet. So I'm real excited for getting the Starlink where I can just, let's go to the small towns. Because I grew up in a small town, about 400 people in my town.
Okay.
Had what, 4 kids in your family?
Yes, we were 4 kids.
Yeah, we had 12.
Oh, okay.
I'm number 11 out of 12.
So your family had more.
Yeah, they said they saw Cheaper by the Dozen when they were courting.
And did it really play out Cheaper by the Dozen?
Yeah, I think so. We survived on very little. We had our own sawmill, and that was how we made our living.
Oh.
But we would load up, like you were talking about in your the little Volkswagen van with the camper behind. We would load up in a full-size van with tents. We'd have a big tent for the boys and a big tent for the girls, and camped. And we went, so far I have been to 47 states. I have 3 states I have not visited.
Amazing. That is I think that in the end of the day, yes, we should not work to live or live to work, but we should enjoy life and work in between. I think that is in the end of the day.
Yes. Oh, I like the way you say that.
Yeah. And I think that is something that you are teaching your sons to embrace, is that,
yes,
you know what, yes, working is important because, hey, it puts food on the table. But if you don't live side by side to that, then it's not, then this life is not really worth it. And
right, it's not, you don't go day in, day out, work, eat, sleep, and just save up for that one day. Do a little each day.
Yes, because that one day may never come. There's I don't know if your family ever had that, but my family had this fancy china, this fancy china set, like this when only when important people come to eat, this dinner set gets taken out. And it never made sense to me as a child, and I know now why it doesn't make sense to me to have the special plates, locked up, gathering dust for that one day, that maybe that's someone who's special enough to, to lay it out, when the people that you love the most is special enough to eat out of the fancy china every single day. And that is how I use my stuff. I have very, very few things that I save up for that, that special opportunity. Yes, have I lost some of the special stuff due to wear and tear and usage? Yes, but you know what? It was used and loved. And the memories in the end of the day, I'm not going to take in the old age home, I'm not going to take the fancy china with me, but I'm going to take the memories, the photographs, the special moments, and that in the end of the day boils down to how the values we install in our kids is what is it that we value?
Yes.
Is it material things, or is it the people that matters?
And that reminds me, my grandma always used to say, if somebody gives you something, don't stick it away in the dresser. What good is it doing in the bottom of the dresser not being used? Use it.
Yes.
And so my mom, we had some fancy china. It was brought back from, I believe from Japan. It was brought back from Asia by my mom's brother when he was in the military. So it was the Willowware china. And that was the special china that was in the cabinet, but it came out for birthdays. It came out for a day that, hey, let's get fancy today, just because we wanted to make it fancy. And with 12 kids, 7 boys, yeah, most of it didn't make it.
Didn't survive. Didn't survive.
Most of it didn't survive, but we all have memories of that Willowware. It's, oh, look, it's Willowware. Ah, yes, Willowware, when we see it at a store, or we each have something from that. That still did survive. But if we hadn't brought it out, it would have just been, oh, that was the dishes in the cabinet.
No.
You know, but we made the memories with it.
Yes, and that is what
was
counts.
the thing.
That was good.
Yeah. And with the boys and I, the reason I moved into the RV is, yeah, it's like I had like over the span of 3 years old surgical procedures within 3 years. We can't wait for one day. The future is too fragile. Yes. That one day may never come. Or that one day, that one of them might be in a wheelchair and they can't do this walking on these trails, or they can't do this very easily. You know, they still can in a wheelchair, but it's much harder and more difficult. Yes. I'm like, I need to get them out there to explore it more. You know, and my oldest son with the POTS diagnosis, he could end up bedbound. I mean, there's things that go on. It's a hour by hour, day by day, you know, it changes and can really affect how he can do things. And I'm like, he's got to go out and experience it now. We've got to go now and really let him experience everything. And since we've done that, he's gotten better in a lot of ways of being able often to have more endurance, to walk further, to have the strength more, because he does more than he did when we were at home. You know, the novelty things, you know, oh, we're in a new place, let's go walk and check it out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to circle back around, earlier you were talking about them feeling connected, them feeling loved and appreciated and important. And this is something I realized in myself within this last year. It was like my son would start telling me things like about his video games, and my eyes would start to glaze over and it'd be like, I really don't want to hear about the video games. And then I realized I was telling him, I don't want to hear about what's important to you. I want you to talk to me about what's important to me. And I was realizing I'm shutting him out and telling him, I'm going to judge you on what you're telling me. And so I've made the conscious turnaround in my head of when he wants, sometimes I still say, no, I don't want to hear the video games right now. Or you need to talk about some real stuff. But other times it's, yeah, tell me about that. You know, or we'll go walking and tell me, how does that work? And I still don't play the video games because I just don't have time as a single mom. But I've realized it's important to have him telling me about them and actually listening to him, so that when there's something real important, girls, dating, you know, any of that stuff, he knows that I'm listening, and he knows he's important, and I'll take the time to listen to it. Yeah. And that was like something clicked in my brain this year on that, and I'm going, okay, I need to listen.
Now, I've been roped into the Minecraft world. I play Minecraft. We've got a mommy server. They call it the mommy server because it runs on my laptop. We've got a mommy server where the four of us play together. So I've been roped into, and I'm actually now enjoying it a lot. I've been roped into playing Minecraft, and there's a Minecraft thing. If you guys are, like a family that actually watches Minecraft videos, there's this Minecraft community called Hermitcraft. And they're like in season 7 already. So they get absolutely amazing Minecraft players, and they all play on the same server. And they've got these storylines and plot lines. It's almost like following a TV series kind of thing. But it's just just a bunch of really amazing builders, creative thinkers. They're really and we.
Oh, you should see the stuff my son does on these things. He has like automatic chicken farms and
exactly.
So he sets up all these automatic things. I'm like, how did you think of that?
I still miserably currently fail at I tried to automate my item sorter, and the thing keeps on breaking on me. So somewhere I did something wrong. But yeah, we enjoy the Hermitcraft, and I was drawn into it, and it's really it's health, it's family friendly. They don't swear, they don't, and they play good clean fun. And there's
so is that a YouTube channel?
Yes. Yes, you've got quite a few. You can follow the players, and the thing's name is Hermitcraft. You just type in Hermitcraft in YouTube. The people that we follow, there's Karien, Grain, Karien, Mumbo Jumbo, and Scar, and then BOO. But there's more than those. I think there's about close to 20 players on the server, but those are the 4 that we as a family follow. And they're funny, especially Karien. Karien is like the instigator. He starts civil wars on that thing, because he's like, they're currently in season 7. They've got this resistance, and see, now I'm like glazing your eyes over already, but it's so funny how they start this. The shopping district was started as a mycelium place. They had a whole thing where they changed the type of block to grass blocks. And then Karien looked at this and he said, you know what? I think we should move it back to mycelium. So he started the mycelium resistance. So you've got this whole plot line of people on the server that's part of the resistance, and people on the server that's part of the grass, group, and then how they build buildings and trap each other, and, just have good, clean fun. And you can't help but smile and laugh every time that you've watched it. And that's how they roped me into the Minecraft thing. I started watching Hermitcraft. Long convoluted story to explain to you how I started watching Hermitcraft, and I started enjoying Minecraft. And that is how they convinced me to start playing it with the family, so that we can have the same kind of fun. And now I get thrown up by the kids. So
yeah, this sounds like my sons have they have one Minecraft server they're on with a group of other people, and there's all this drama of, oh, this faction did this and this faction, and oh, now we're going to war with this faction, but it has to be this kind of all these rules. So there's all that drama of like that one, but they have a different server that they're on with just their friends that they know in real life. And with that one, they've created their own little society. They've created here's the rules, and if you break a rule, we got to go to the courthouse and you get a fine, and it's just like. And of course, my younger son with Tourettes, there comes a big serving of disinhibition. So that part of your brain that says, stop, don't do that. His part of the brain doesn't work real well. So he's constantly breaking the rules and getting a fine, and they're picking on me. And it's like, oh, let's talk about this, same as everyone else.
Yeah.
Or are you being, judging him more because he frustrates you and annoys you so much? It's like, well, I'm like, yeah, if this was your friend so-and-so, would you? Yeah, Mom, okay. So it's a real learning experience for them.
Yeah.
It has been wonderful talking with you. I could talk to you for hours.
Well, same here. Thank you very much for the conversation, Shannon. Guys, if you want to watch Shannon's videos on her channel, she is absolutely amazing. Little Zebra Dragons. There is a link down below in the description, so go click there, hit the like button, subscribe, follow her, support her. Go on the journey and the travel with them, and it will actually, for those parents who have neurodiverse kids, this is really a channel that you can follow. I have had an absolutely awesome opportunity to chat with you, Shannon. I appreciate it, and I look forward that we will have more conversations like this in the future, as we both learn and grow and move and go through different changes with our kids and all the different challenges. All right, guys, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.